Welcome back to the Clark Update. I'm back today with a brand new video following Stephanie, the head coach of Fever. When White told her detractors, everyone else can go to hell, the response was instantaneous. Fans were split, social media exploded, and one central query began to dominate the discourse. You're watching the Clark Update, so relax, stay tuned, and let's get started. What occurs when a coach in the WNBA looks directly at the criticism directed at her team and basically says, "Enough is enough?" That's precisely what took place with Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever.
Will win, humility will win, and kindness will win. I stand by them. I will always stand by them. Everybody else can go to hell.
Okay, well, this is what happens when I told you guys. I mean, they brought it on themselves, and this head coach is no better. She's refused to stand up for biological truth, as we both know. This is the head coach of Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark, just so you have the proper context. She's had enough. She's telling the internet to go to hell, but remember, they refuse to stand up for truth. They've allowed the media essentially to bully them into these questions. They could have shut it down from day one. They failed to do so. Now she wants to throw a tantrum and expect us to, I guess, have some type of sympathy. No, thank you.
Following days of harsh criticism on the Fever, Stephanie White addressed the media and gave one of her most powerful remarks of the season. She discussed harmony. She discussed keeping her safe. Players, she spoke about unity, love, and grace. She then dropped the line, which immediately went viral on social media. Going into overdrive, "You can all go to hell." However, this is when the narrative takes a surprising turn, because Stephanie White infuriated certain fans.
Stephanie White, pre-game, goes on an unhinged tirade calling out the fans. If you're critical of her, you can go to hell. If you don't think she stands up for her players, you can go to hell. If you don't like how she responded to Dejanay Carrington clotheslining Sophie Cunningham, you can go to hell. If you think her comments after that incident took place was a little bit less than favorable, you can go to hell. Stephanie White tells us exactly how she feels about those who are critical of her. She calls us fearmongers.
After a very passionate Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky game between Sophie Cunningham and Jonai, the debate started. Carrington, following a strong foul on Cunningham that was later elevated to a penalty, Carrington was sent off. Flagrant 2. Following the game, Stephanie White's initial remarks drew criticism. Regarding the event, some thought White's defense of her own player lacked sufficient strength. On the internet, that criticism grew. Before long, the conversation had moved beyond just one basketball play. It turned into a discussion about loyalty, leadership, and whether White had appropriately supported the players she coaches. After that, things got worse. White discovered that commentators and fans were criticizing her, while the Fever attempted to concentrate on their season at the same time. Additionally, rather than silently permitting, White made the decision to confront the situation head-on.
This is crazy. It might be over for real, for real. Head coach of the Indiana Fever, Stephanie White, was just viciously booed by thousands of fans at home in Indiana. Thousands of fans booed her during player and coach intros when her name was announced as the Indiana Fever head coach. She was booed out of the building to the point where Indiana Fever team president Kelly Crosskopf had to come in and make a statement. Caitlin Clark had to make a statement. This is bad. This is nasty. They had to talk about it after the game.
White made it apparent in her pre-game speech that she would not allow outside criticism to split her team. She added that she would continue to support her players and that the Fever was united. She also admitted that she hadn't first seen the controversial play's full replay, but after reading it again, she gave a far more detailed account of the event. Then came the time when everyone was anticipating. In essence, White erected a boundary between her group and those who were targeting it. Her message was straightforward. "You are free to criticize me. The crew is open to criticism. However, I will continue to support my players." Then the unforgettable phrase, "You can all go to hell." The ambience in the room changed drastically right away. This was not a polished corporate statement. This was sentimental. This was a private matter, and it was obviously coming from someone who thought her players were being unfairly singled out. After then, White departed without answering any questions. And that choice further heightened the drama of the situation.
Before I do a question about the game, I presume both of you have seen what your head coach said before the game now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've been made aware.
Okay. What did you think about the things she had to say, and why do you think she decided now was the time to do that?
I talked to Steph earlier in the day too, and I think we forget a lot of times, like, we're human and she has feelings, and, there's moments that are really hard, and sometimes that's just the job you sign up for. But at the same time, like, it's okay to feel those emotions. And I just told her, like, I've been through the same thing. Like, there's been days where I've been really upset, and you can have the thickest skin in the world, but sometimes it does get to you. And, I think our world is just like, we love to hate. We love to divide. Like, that's all we want to do. Like, nobody wants to see each other succeed. And I think that's a really painful thing for myself to watch.
This is where things start to become pretty intriguing. If you thought Caitlin Clark would cut ties with White following such a contentious declaration, you wouldn't have been correct. Rather, Clark openly supported her coach. Furthermore, she wasn't too pleased with what she had seen from certain Fever followers when the team was playing against. During introductions, some supporters jeered White of the New York Liberty. Later on, Clark clarified that she was distressed to witness her own coach being jeered by Fever fans. Clark actually claimed that the circumstances made she felt ill. She underlined that White had the backing of the team and that the players were behind her. Take a moment to consider that the biggest star on the Fever wasn't trying to distance herself from the situation. From her coach. "We're together," she said. "That message is important, because teams that play professional sports can endure a poor game. They are resilient to criticism. They can even withstand outrage on social media. However, once players lose faith, things might truly fall apart when they lose faith in each other or in their coach." Clark seemed determined not to allow that to occur. Not every fan shared White's viewpoint, and that's crucial. Some of her supporters took her remarks seriously, were very combative. Some thought it was the inappropriate tone for a head coach to urge detractors to go to hell. However, there was more to the response, and many headlines might easily overlook this. Stephanie White telling critics to go to hell isn't the biggest story. What transpired is the larger tale. Later, according to Caitlin Clark's statement, the locker room at the moment was not collapsing. The exact opposite. Clark discussed the team's unity and mutual support, and the reason that matters is the Fever occurs in the midst of a time of year when all distractions can intensify. Every remark turns into a headline. Every foul turns into a discussion. Every response is analyzed on the internet. Additionally, when Caitlin Clark participates, the spotlight gets even brighter. Therefore, when Clark stands next to her coach in public, she is communicating that extends well beyond a single news conference. The group is opting for harmony rather than discord now. Nevertheless, the question is more significant. Was Stephanie White correct to react with such vigor? There are those who will say, absolutely. They will contend that coaches ought to safeguard their players and prevent outside noise from taking over the locker room. Some will claim that White also went far and that a professional head coach ought to disregard the criticism. To be honest, there is disagreement on both sides. Because sports involve emotions, fans give these teams their time, money, and enthusiasm. They have a bond with the players. When something goes wrong, they demand explanations. However, athletes and coaches are also human. Additionally, occasionally, frustration finally erupts after days of criticism. Because of this, White's comment incredibly unforgettable. Therefore, Caitlin Clark did not turn against Stephanie White. Actually, the most recent advancements point in the other way. White was being jeered by several supporters. Clark was standing up for her, while detractors questioned White's leadership. Clark stressed the cohesion of the group. White also made it clear to her detractors where she stood. In essence, the biggest star of the Fever replied, "We're standing together." Whether you concur with Stephanie, whether you agree with White or not, one thing is certain: the Indiana Fever are now among the most watched teams. Teams that play women's basketball. Every controversy sparks a new discussion, every game generates a new headline. And each response from Caitlin Clark appears to turn into a unique tale. Thus, the question is no longer just if Stephanie White's supporters concur. Is it possible for the Fever to use all of this noise as basketball fuel? Court, because if she and Clark defend her players with such vigor, or should she have responded to the criticism in a different way? Tell us in the comments. Additionally, you may follow Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever to see what happens next. Keep an eye out, and that raises the question. Right now, it seems like everyone is asking, was Stephanie White correct to take a stand at last? Because regardless of whether you concur with, regardless of her word choice, one thing is certain: the Indiana Fever is under a great deal of pressure. Every game is examined, every choice is discussed, every infraction turns into a dispute on social media. Additionally, each time Caitlin Clark moves, millions of eyes are on the court. However, Stephanie White made one statement amid all of that chaos. It's obvious that she has faith in her players. Although several fans were taken aback by her "go to hell" remark, it also demonstrated how She is fiercely protective of those in her locker room. The entire situation was further complicated by Caitlin Clark's answer. Circumstance: Clark supported her coach rather than putting further distance between them. That is important, since teams aren't created exclusively through victories and defeats, they are based on trust. When players feel that their coach has their back, they are strengthened. They are created when teammates don't allow external criticism to destroy them, and that seems to be the message at the moment. Originating from within the Fever, this is the intriguing bit, though. The supporters won't leave, they will continue to argue. Decisions will continue to be questioned, they will continue to respond to every situation, and to be honest, that's one of the things that makes sports so interesting. A coach may disagree with you, a player may disagree with you. You may even disagree with the choices made by your favorite team. However, in the end, the only thing that can what takes place in the court is a debate. The pressure now returns to the Fever. Are Stephanie White's athletes able to shut off the noise? Can Caitlin Clark maintain her position as the team's leader despite all the attention she receives? Above all, is it possible for Indiana to make the most of this controversy? Because if they are able to, in the end, this whole episode might just be another stage in the Fever's journey. However, if the criticism keeps getting worse, each subsequent game can put even more pressure on players. For this reason, the upcoming games are going to be quite interesting to observe. Caitlin Clark is undoubtedly not giving up. Stephanie White is not supporting away. Additionally, the supporters aren't retreating either. The argument is still ongoing, there is still disagreement. And the tale is far from finished. I want to hear from you now. Do you believe Stephanie White was correct to stand up for her players strongly? Do you believe that her "go to hell" remark went too far, or do you think she was just defending her team? When did the strain get to be too much? What are your thoughts on Caitlin Clark standing up for her coach? Please share your honest thoughts with us in the remarks section below, since your viewpoint could differ greatly from everyone else's. And that's why this discussion is so fascinating. Please remember to use this like button if you like this breakdown button, switch on notifications, and subscribe to the channel to ensure you don't miss the next major Caitlin a tale of Indiana sickness or Clark, because you never really know what will happen next when working with this team. I appreciate you viewing, and I hope to see you in the upcoming video.